Do not watch this alone. Do not pause on your reflection. If your screen goes dark while watching this, and something is still staring back, leave immediately. This documentary should not exist. Records trace this phenomenon back over 600 years. Long before mirrors were common in every home, before cameras could capture a single moment in time, before glass was clear enough to reflect a face with perfect accuracy. It was 1427. Monks in a remote monastery in Eastern Europe documented a recurring phenomenon they called the unblinking witness. They described a face that would appear in any reflective surface. It was seen in polished metal shields, in still bowls of water, and in the dark, glossy surface of blackened obsidian. The face, they wrote, never blinked. It never spoke. But it did one thing with horrifying precision. It copied. It mimicked the expression of whoever was looking, but always with a slight, almost imperceptible delay. The monks believed it was a test of faith, a demon sent to tempt the vain. They didn't know how right and how wrong they were. The entity wasn't just in their monastery. It was everywhere. They were just the first to write it down. Soon, the whispers spread beyond the monastery walls. Villages across the continent reported strange and disturbing occurrences. People were becoming obsessed with their own reflections. They would stand for hours, days even, staring into wells or ponds, refusing to look away, refusing to eat or sleep. When they were finally found, they were technically still alive, standing upright, eyes wide open, their faces frozen into expressions that were not their own. A rictus of terror, a silent scream, a smile stretched unnaturally wide. The villagers learned to fear their own image. They stopped using mirrors altogether. Water barrels were covered tightly at night. A chilling new rule was taught to children. Never ever describe your own face aloud. Don't speak of the color of your eyes, the shape of your nose, or the curve of your smile. Those who broke the rule simply vanished. They weren't found standing by the water. They were just gone, leaving behind only the lingering fear and the reflection they had so foolishly described. Let's fast forward to the 1800s, the dawn of the modern age. The invention of photography promised to capture reality, to freeze moments in time. But for some early photographers, it captured something else entirely. They began to report a terrifying anomaly in their work. In the fragile, silver-coated daguerreotypes, extra faces would appear. These weren't shadows. They weren't double exposures or chemical smudges. They were faces, clear and distinct, pressed unnervingly close to the lens, as if trying to break through the glass. Their eyes stared directly out of the photograph, locking onto the viewer. Every single photographer who documented this phenomenon, who dared to capture the image of the unblinking witness, stopped taking portraits within months. Many of them met a fate chillingly similar to the villagers from centuries before. Their friends and family reported a strange change in their behavior. They stopped blinking. Their gaze became fixed, their faces slowly losing all expression, as if being wiped clean by an unseen hand. The camera had not just captured an image, it had created a permanent connection. Over the centuries, a few who encountered the entity and survived managed to piece together the rules. Their scattered journals and terrified letters describe a consistent, horrifying pattern. First, it only appears when you see your own reflection. It hijacks your image. Second, it mimics your expressions, but always with a slight delay, a subtle lag that makes your stomach drop. Third, it never blinks. While your eyes blink naturally, its eyes remain wide, unblinking, and fixed on you. Fourth, each time you notice it, each time you acknowledge its presence in your reflection, it gets a little closer. The image that looks like you, but isn't you, seems to press forward from within the mirror, the screen, the water, and the final rule, the most terrifying of all. Once you recognize it clearly, once you see it for what it truly is, and not just a trick of the light, it recognizes you permanently. You are marked. It knows you, and it will never look away again. By the early 1900s, the phenomenon had reached a scale that could no longer be dismissed as folklore. Entire psychiatric wards across Europe and America began recording patients with identical, inexplicable symptoms. They would be found standing motionless in their rooms, often in front of a window or a small, polished metal object. Their eyes were wide, their bodies rigid, their faces locked in a single, unchanging expression. Doctors of the era, limited by their understanding, diagnosed it as catatonia, a severe form of schizophrenia. But the nurses, the ones who spent the long, dark hours on the wards, whispered a different theory. They saw the subtle shifts, the minute twitches that the doctors missed. They saw the way the patient's frozen expressions would sometimes change, almost imperceptibly, into a new mask of fear or a vacant smile. "They aren't frozen," the nurses would say to each other in hushed tones. "They're being practiced." The entity wasn't just watching anymore, it was learning. It was rehearsing, using living human faces as its canvas. They say mirrors are a window to the soul, but what if something is looking back? For centuries, people have felt a strange unease, staring at their own reflection. A flicker of movement in the corner of your eye, a feeling that the person in the glass isn't quite you. It was a myth, a ghost story told around campfires. But then, the internet made it stronger. Selfies, screens, an endless digital hall of mirrors. Suddenly, the old fear had a new name. Online forums began documenting a presence they called the mimic face. The stories were all eerily similar. People reported their phones unlocking by themselves, the front cameras activating without warning. They'd see their screens stay lit, even after they'd powered them off, showing a faint, lingering image of their own face. And then came the most disturbing reports, reflections that stayed behind. Just for a moment, after the person had already looked away. It started as a glitch, a trick of the light, but the glitches were becoming more frequent, more real. In 2013, a story surfaced that chilled the online community to its core. A college dorm room security camera recorded a student named Emily Carter sitting on her bed, smiling at her phone. The video is grainy, but clear enough to see her reflection in the dark screen. As she smiles, the reflection smiles back, but it's half a second late. The delay is almost imperceptible, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The next morning, her roommate found her. Emily was alive, standing perfectly still in front of the full-length mirror on their closet door. Her eyes were wide open, staring blankly at her own image. But the face that stared back wasn't hers, not anymore. Her parents couldn't recognize her. The features were the same, but the expression, the life behind the eyes, was alien. Doctors diagnosed it as a profound psychological shock, a complete dissociative episode. The official report was inconclusive. The mirror from her room was removed and destroyed as a precaution. But according to her roommate, who transferred schools immediately after, something remained. She swore that for weeks, you could still see a faint, smiling reflection in the empty space where the mirror used to hang. This incident, and others like it, revealed a terrifying truth about this entity. It doesn't kill. It doesn't attack in the traditional sense. It studies. It learns. It meticulously observes every detail of its target. The subtle tension in your jaw when you're stressed. The exact pattern of your eye movements when you read. The unique rhythm of your breathing as you sleep. Survivors, the few who have been able to communicate after an encounter, describe a horrifying process of replacement. They report their reflections moving first, blinking when they know their own eyes are open. Their reflection would smile when they were consumed by fear. It wasn't trying to be a perfect copy at first. It was practicing. One recovered victim, before lapsing into a permanent catatonic state, managed to scrawl a final, chilling message on a notepad. It's not trying to scare me. It's rehearsing. As the incidents grew, an unofficial wall of silence began to form. Hospitals sealed off entire rooms where victims were being kept, citing contamination risks. Government agencies classified security footage and witness testimonies, burying them under layers of bureaucracy. Entire online threads dedicated to documenting the mimic face vanished overnight, their data wiped clean. In the small towns where these events occurred, locals refused to talk. Families have been known to burn every mirror in their house, to smash their phone screens, to live in a world without reflections. Some houses have no reflective surfaces at all, every window painted, every piece of metal dulled, and still, the cases continue. The entity doesn't need a mirror. Any reflective surface will do. A puddle of water, a polished countertop, the screen you're watching right now. So here is the final, crucial warning. If you ever look at your reflection, and it hesitates for just a fraction of a second, if it blinks out of sync with your own eyes, if it feels closer than it should, as if it's pressing against the other side of the glass, do not react. Don't gasp. Don't flinch. Don't show any fear. Don't even let your heart rate change. Because the moment you acknowledge the discrepancy, the moment you show it that you see it, it knows. It knows its rehearsal is over, and it knows your face well enough to wear it. Some reflections are not yours. Some faces are just waiting for an invitation. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story is a new reason to be afraid of the dark.